The tire blew with a sound that I'll never forget, like someone popped a drum in the middle of a quiet room, and in that single breath, everything changed. We'd lived on Willow Ridge for 3 years. Lawn was our weekend project. Lena had planted those little bluebells along the walkway, and I mowed every Saturday like clockwork because it felt like taking care of a promise. Then a car pulls up, someone cuts across the grass, and what you thought was a small neighborhood thing turns into a claim not on land, but on who gets to decide what normal looks like. My name is Mason Reed. I work from home, which is a polite way of saying I'm on the property a lot, fixing a splitter here, juggling client calls there. I like the yard because it's the one place where I can turn something messy into something that looks like me. Evelyn Hart moved in a few blocks over, and, well, Evelyn had rules. She wore a blazer in August, carried a clipboard like a Bible, and smiled the way people smile right before they file something. At first she'd wave when we saw her on evening walks. Then her waves got shorter, and the way she looked at the border between our driveway and the shared easement had the kind of hunger I hadn't appreciated until later. It started small. Her SUV cut the corner, left a muddy arc. I left a polite sticky note. Hey, can you avoid driving over our yard? It's getting torn up. She stuck the note to her fridge like a trophy, and the next week backed up onto the lawn again, this time with 2 tire tracks, so clean they looked deliberate. When I knocked on her door, she opened it with that clipboard and said, "If you love your lawn so much, plant something taller, Reed." She said it like it was a helpful suggestion, like she was giving gardening advice, but the tone was a lever, and she used it. "We have standards," she said, and standards became a weapon. I stopped leaving notes and started recording. I set up a little cheap camera the night I noticed fresh tracks again, because when things look like accidents in daylight, a recording can make them look like choices. The camera caught it. Headlights, late, that same SUV cutting the lawn like it was a path. I watched it back 3 times, and each time I felt something shift inside me, not a new hatred, but a clarity. This wasn't about grass. This was about boundaries, about who gets to move through your life without asking. I tried to do what people call the reasonable thing. I brought the footage to Evelyn in the HOA meeting room, a church basement with folding chairs and coffee that tasted of pennies, and I set my phone down on the table like a small, quiet bomb. The video played. People shuffled because the truth has a sound, and you can't ignore it once you hear it. Evelyn's face closed like a lid. She said, "That could be anyone's car." One of her allies, a man named Carlton, leaned forward and used the sort of voice people use when they're about to win something. "We can't make accusations without more evidence," he said, and the room smelled of people choosing the easy side. After that, things escalated faster than I expected. One night someone tried to slash our sprinkler lines, not that they succeeded, but the attempt felt intimate, like someone had tried to cut the things that keep a home alive. Then came the confrontation in the cul-de-sac, 3 in the afternoon, a summer sun that made everybody squint, and Evelyn standing with Carlton and 2 other HOA enforcers who looked like they'd been deputized by a neighborly mission. I walked up because I'd had enough of walking around the edge. I said, "Evelyn, we have the footage. You're tearing up my lawn." She smiled, a cold thing that made even the kids pause on the sidewalk, and said, "You think I don't know how to follow a rule? I've been doing this longer than you've had that mower." There was a laugh, the kind that tries to end the conversation before it starts. Then Carlton stepped forward, and the smile dropped. He muttered something under his breath that made Lena step back. I could tell he wanted to scare me. There was emotion, a hand resting near a pocket where his jacket bunched like it was hiding something. He didn't pull anything out, thank God, but he spoke in that low, bullying tone. "You keep pushing and people get hurt, Reed." I looked at him, and, for a second, the world narrowed to his eyes and the way the other neighbors lowered their heads. Threats are a strange thing. Sometimes they are fireworks, loud and obvious, and sometimes they are a slow, poisonous drip that says, "Don't make trouble." That night I sat on the porch while Lena put the kids to bed. The house felt full of small sounds that used to be comfort and now felt like evidence that this was costing something greater than turf. I thought about walking away. I thought about letting the lawn go, letting the tire ruts be history. But then I pictured the edge not of our grass, but of other people's lives, and realized I didn't want to be the one who let someone else decide what respect looked like in our neighborhood. So I did the thing people warn you about. I went public. I called in, I printed copies of the videos, and I asked the city about trespass laws. I made a petition old school, paper and pen, and I left it on doorsteps asking neighbors to sign, because if a lot of small voices say no, it becomes harder for one loud voice to drown them out. The day the tire blew was the day everything leaked into the open. Evelyn's SUV was stuck in the grass like a confession, tires shredded, neighbors in pajamas and shoes at the curb, and silence that felt more honest than any of those official emails. Someone recorded it on their phone, and the video spread like wildfire because people like spectacle. The police came, did their thing, took statements, wrote down license plates, and for the first time it felt like the rules we all pretended to care about had weight again. Evelyn stood there with mud on her bumper and a face that had been polished for public service, and I watched as the armor she'd built around herself started to chip. The HOA emergency meeting after that was electric. People brought our printed evidence, and other folks brought their stories: a mailbox smashed, an unfair fine for an out-of-season porch light, another neighbor's garden torn up because it didn't match the standards. There were voices on both sides, and you could see the social ledger being balanced in real time. When the vote came to censure Evelyn, it was close. That's the thing about community: it's messy, and it doesn't divide cleanly into heroes and villains. Some people defended her because they'd known her for years. Others voted because they'd seen, finally, what unchecked authority could do. She didn't go quietly. There was a moment when everything felt like it could boil over: Evelyn at the podium, Carlton whispering, a few people on the edge of shouting. Lena squeezed my hand under the table like she was anchoring both of us. I remember Evelyn saying, "You people don't understand responsibility," and her voice had a brittle quality like a box that had been dropped too many times. The vote passed by a handful of ballots. She was removed from her position. There were hugs. There were tears. There was that odd mixture of victory and exhaustion, like finishing a fight, but losing a little piece of yourself in the process. Afterward, the lawn got fixed. We reseeded the ruts, put in fresh edging, and had a neighbor, the same Mr. Alvarez who'd warned me, come over with a wheelbarrow and laugh like it wasn't so serious. And in some ways it wasn't, because the turf healed. But inside the house there were changes I couldn't plant back. The kids asked why people were mean. Lena stopped waving to strangers for a while. I found myself watching for signs of entitlement, of when someone carries a clipboard like a crown. It cost us sleep, a few friendships, and it opened a vein of doubt that I still check on, sometimes in the middle of the night. Did we overreact? Did we escalate? Could we have handled things differently? I don't have tidy answers. What I have is the sound of that tire and the faces in the cul-de-sac, and a new way to understand what ownership means. It's not just deeds and maps, it's the daily bargain of mutual respect, and when someone breaks that bargain, the rest of us have to decide whether we let them keep breaking it or whether we stand up and say, enough. I'm not trying to be heroic. I'm just saying we chose to defend a piece of what felt like ours, and sometimes defending something small is how you keep bigger things from being taken. So tell me, what would you have done? Was I right to push back, or did we make waves we couldn't calm? Drop a comment. Tell your story of a neighborhood fight or an authority gone too far. And if you like this, share it with someone who loves a good small-town showdown. Justice is messy. Community is complicated. I want to hear where you land.